Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. Bringing you the goods every week as they come in the door and going over some new release info and whatnot. Um, Medium sized week this week. We had a Super Bowl and a Valentine's Day holiday, so there wasn't a whole lot. Usually, there used to be more that they would release this week, but I think they've sort of backed off because I'll tell you right now, the new release schedule is absolutely loaded between next week and the foreseeable future. So I'll get to that here in a minute and give you some updates on new release dates. But anyway, so let me get started today with what's here. The first thing I'm going to do is a couple of box set type things. The first one, this actually came out officially last Friday, but this is the American Analog set, and it is their new album or new box set, New Drifters. These are kind of like indie shoegaze type guys from Austin, Texas. Sort of started in the 90s, took a big hiatus of about 18 years, just released a new record. But this is a sort of a comprehensive box set of early stuff done by the Numero Group. Features their albums, Fun of Watching Fireworks, From Our Living Room to Yours, and The Golden Band, plus a bunch of B-sides, rarities, outtakes. Pretty cool set. I think this is the color vinyl edition too. Oh yeah, Gone to Earth split vinyl. So you might be interested in that. It's actually pretty good deal too, about $100 for all that. And if you're into sort of like Luna and oh, I don't know, sort of like the mellower side of maybe Jesus and Mary Chain, or like kind of Cocteau Twins without the Liz Fraser vocals. Sort of more understated than that. More like maybe Low is a good sort of comparison. But check that out. That's really cool. Another box set, sort of a box set, deluxe edition that came out this week. Show No Mercy by Slayer. Uh, this is pretty cool. It's probably a bit of a cash grab because I don't know how much extra they put in this, but it's a gatefold LP on gold black dust vinyl, remastered for vinyl from the original master tapes. A 28-page LP size booklet, slip mats, poster, flyers, signing cards. So really, there's not new music at all, but for twice the price, you get sort of a cool package. Um, there's other Slayer stuff coming out this year. Not new stuff I've heard yet, but sort of reissues that look kind of cool. All right, so a couple of jazz things to show this week. Yusef Lateef's Eastern Sounds. This album has been on the schedule for at least 3 months now, being delayed. Finally, OJC, Original Jazz Classics, gets this one out. Kevin Gray remastered this at Coherent Audio. This OJC series, people are raving about it. They say that these are some of the best sounding records that they've heard, or best sounding updates of old records. But Yusef is sort of more avant garde, but this is one of his best, most acclaimed records. So excited to see that. A couple of Blue Note classic series this week. Tone Poets are taking a rest, so we get the classics, which are a little bit more affordable. This is Lee Morgan's Search for the New Land, and I think they did a really good job with the cover image on this. It seems, if you can tell, that it's very sharp sort of transfer, more sharp in the resolution than I've seen before on previous editions, featuring Wayne Shorter, Grant Green, Herbie Hancock, Reginald Workman, and Billy Higgins. And these are also remastered by Kevin Gray, or cut by Kevin Gray. And another one that I think some people will be looking for, Joe Henderson's Mode for Joe. And this is, let's see, what year did this come out originally? Sometimes they'll tell you on the back. I guess not in this case. This features Lee Morgan again, who was just had his release there. Curtis Fuller, Joe Henderson, Bobby Hutcherson, Cedar Walton, Ron Carter, and Joe Chambers. Really good group of performers there. So there you have it for this week. There's a lot of jazz on the schedule coming shortly, so keep your eyes open there. Okay, in the sort of classical realm, this is such a great record. I have the CD, I bought it years ago, and it kind of started a sort of love affair for me with the music of George Crumb. But this is Black Angels by Kronos Quartet. So, talk about pieces of music that really test the limits of louds and softs in your stereo and whatever. This was features Black Angels, the first piece, written in 1970 by George Crumb. I actually have a letter from him somewhere. George passed away a year or two ago. Unfortunately, he's based in Philadelphia, and such an incredible composer. His music, if you looked at it on like just laid out on a page, he would sometimes compose music in the shape of a peace sign, or the shape of a crucifix, or the shape of an infinity symbol. And the performers, it was up to them to try and interpret the music based on what was on these sort of forms of the page from his macrocosmos. But Black Angels is quite a piece for string quartet. This features also works by Thomas Tallis from the 16th century to kind of like cleanse the palate there, Charles Ives and Shostakovich. So a great recording, and one that's sort of, if you got the other Kronos record from late last year that they did Philip Glass, you might be interested in this one as well. Okay, on to some rock stuff. Idol's new record, Tank. This is Love is the Thing, is sticker on here. This is the independent store exclusive, pressed on translucent pink vinyl. And all songs are produced by Nigel Godrich with a couple other people, Nigel being famous for doing things like Radiohead and Beck. So interesting to hear where Idols go. Their last record, I think, it didn't seem like it did as well in the store as the previous one. So they're kind of probably at somewhat of a turning point, I guess. But another band who sort of has developing a long track record now, Blackberry Smoke. They're sort of there for your Southern rock Allman Brothers fix. Produced by Dave Cobb this time. Big time sort of Southern and country producer. Worked with Jason Isbell, among a lot of other people. The reigning heavyweight champions of Southern rock, from No Depression, wrote that. This is Golden Birdwing vinyl, indie exclusive, 180 gram. So there you go, full length album from them. New record from Grandaddy, Blue Wave. It's been a while since Grandaddy put something out. This is on Nebula vinyl, which I think is another indie exclusive there. Quite a few songs. Grandaddy, sort of indie rock, kind of like a little bit spacey and psychedelic at times. I guess people tend to sort of put them in like categories with like spiritualized and stuff like that. I think they're a little more intimate sounding than that, but something I know less about. I hear Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist, and I think this is pronounced voir dire, but it might be voir dire. But this is hip hop. Earl Sweatshirt, I think people have been waiting for a record from him for a little while. So, but anyway, this is, I can't even read this. So small, exclusive limited edition, pressed on silver vinyl. If I have to lift my glasses to read it, it is very small. Anyway, oh look, it's High Street. And there's a death with his scythe in the car, right? So, um, Earl Sweatshirt is kind of cool, sort of more like, I guess, hip hop with a message, right? But this features a couple tracks from Vince Staples. Mike is on there. All right, sort of indie hip hop. Um, New album from Health, Rat Wars. Health went out on tour with Nine Inch Nails, I believe, and sort of have that kind of industrial sound, but sort of like amped up. This is limited edition translucent ruby red vinyl, indie store exclusive. I think the track list there, you can kind of see whatever's not covered by the sticker. And then on the back, it says, "No one will ever know that you were here," and a picture of the band, I assume. So, all right. New album from Laura Jane Grace. Just continuing the solo career, and it's been getting quite extensive. This album's called Hole in My Head. Hot pink vinyl, includes free album download. There you go, Laura Jane Grace. Let's see, another sort of indie, sort of becoming an icon in the indie circles, Chelsea Wolfe. And this is her new album, She Reaches Out to, She Reaches Out to She. Sort of a elliptical title there from the Fiona Apple School of Titles, if you've been watching my videos. Let's see, indie record store exclusive, limited edition, transparent blue vinyl. Sort of more gothy, I believe, but what I've heard, I'm not really into Chelsea, but I know of Chelsea. All right, this is great. Nouvelle Vague, or Nouvelle Vague, depending on how you pronounce it. Nouvelle Vague. This is sort of like, well, they had a couple albums out, I want to say maybe 15, 20 years ago. In fact, one of them was just reissued, and I think the other one is coming soon as well. But they did sort of what I would call lounge versions of like post-punk kind of like songs and 80s songs, stuff like that. So take an 80s song, make it more loungy, and put kind of breathy female vocals on it. And this is their first album in a really long time. I don't even know how many years because it's been so long. But this one's called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And features What I Like Most About You Is Your Girlfriend, People Are People, which is Depeche Mode, You Spin Me Round, I'm assuming that's Dead or Alive, Only You, Yaz, She's in Parties, Look of Love, ABC, Shout, Tears for Fears. Other titles, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Rebel Yell, Breakfast is Associates, Girls on Film, Duran Duran, Rapture, Blondie, This Charming Man, The Smiths. So you kind of get the idea there. All right. Another band that just keeps going and going, The Residents, Faceless Forever, live in San Francisco. This is from The Secret Show. And it says Holding Up the Underground on the cover, 50th since 1972. Well, actually, then it's 54. But this is a double album, comes on a CD too. I'm not sure. I think that there's actually a video in here. It's a little bit on the pricey side, so I wouldn't be surprised about that. But it says features the San Francisco Girls Chorus, Sarah Cahill, Conspiracy of Beards, Les Claypool, Ego Plum, David J., Dren McDonald, Josh Freese, Pamela Z., and Joshua Rel Brody. I know some of those people. Recorded live January 14th, 2023. So it's a fairly recent recording. If you saw them on their last tour, that might be of interest to you. Or if you're just a Residents fan. And if you're a Residents fan, thank you. All right. You know what I'm talking about. They're quirky. Sarah McLachlan, reissue of Fumbling Towards Ecstasy. This album is an incredible album. It was released on Music on Vinyl for a while, and then they stopped making it a year or two ago. So now Arista Sony Legacy has taken it up and is doing it in the US. This is the album with Possession, which was sort of a big hit. Sort of wasn't a huge radio hit. It was in sort of alternative radio in the 90s, but listen as the wind blows from across the great divide. Hold On was a great song. Mary, Good Enough. Those are very good albums. So, um, and she doesn't, her music now doesn't really sound, it's not bad. It just doesn't sound like that anymore, really, so much. But, okay. Boot Camp Click and their new record, well, not their new record, and their new release of an old record. This is The Last Stand, featuring Buckshot, Smith & Wesson, Helta Skelta, OGC, and Sean Price. This features production from Ninth Wonder, Pete Rock, Marco Polo. So you kind of get the picture there too. Sort of hip-hop classic from 17, 18 years ago. And another sort of there's a lot of reissues this week. Lake Street Dive, Bad Self Portraits. This is a remastered 10th anniversary limited edition with bonus tracks and colored vinyl. So bonus tracks and color vinyl. It looks like 13 songs. Yeah. Lake Street Dive, incredible talents. So Rachel in particular. All right, let's see. So there are some CDs I want to mention coming out. Actually, this I should have on vinyl within a day or so when it comes out. J-Lo, This Is Me Now. Her new record, Jennifer Lopez. The new one from the Middle Kids. This is coming on vinyl soon too. Faith Crisis, Part 1. I'm not sure why it's Part 1, except there's like 12 songs on this, so maybe there's a Part 2 coming. New Chromeo record, Adult Contemporary. These guys just keep going and going, sort of 80s inspired pop. Omni, this band is on Sub Pop, and I don't know a lot about them, but Omni. And then these came out last fall, or last summer, last fall on vinyl, but they're out on CD now. Overkill, Under the Influence, Years of Decay, and Taking Over. This week they announced Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. So I'd like to congratulate one who nobody seems to be congratulating, Sade. I know it's not necessarily rock music as typical rock, but what an incredible mark she left on, and still is alive, has left on music. And as far as the long spans of time between albums, I think it just makes you actually love the ones that she puts out better, or they put out, because they're really a band. The music is just kind of like jazzy pop. It came out in the 80s at first, and then sort of was like, there was a whole movement of sort of jazz pop in the mid 80s coming out of England. And she got a little more R&B since then. The last album, Soldier of Love, has been at least a decade now. So, but anyway, congratulations on getting in there. Maybe that means your new album is coming soon. I don't know. The Cure got in a few years ago, and we're still waiting for them. So it might not mean anything, but congratulations. All right. And so go check out that list if you want to see that. Record Store Day, I'm assuming that the list for that is going to be dropping at any moment now. In fact, it might drop by the time this video gets posted. I really don't know. I will know as soon as you guys know. And that's a little frustrating because it's sort of like I get bombarded with questions, which I have no answers to yet because I haven't really gotten to study them at the time that the list comes out. They used to put the list out about a week earlier to the record stores, and the problem with that is that there were stores that were just leaking information anyway, so it really doesn't matter. They want to have a good sort of like blitz for everybody. It's a pretty democratic thing to do that, so I understand it, but don't don't harass me with questions for at least a few days until I can figure out what exactly is going on. Okay, so that being said, I have a bunch of new release coming up that I want to tell you about, and then I will have my recommends corner. I'm not so sure how many more times I'm going to be doing the recommends. I feel like the videos get long, people start switching off, and as much as I love the records, I don't know how many people are like, yeah, I need to get that, or maybe it's worth it. If you think it's worth it, let me know, and I'll keep doing them. But I feel like I'm starting to cover like bands that maybe I've covered before or talked about in other places, and which I will be doing today for a certain reason. So anyway, all right. So new releases. Here's just get your pen and pencil ready because I'm gonna just breeze. These are highlights. Okay, so this is not nearly everything, but next week, February 23rd, new releases from MGMT, Real Estate, Neil Young, his Zuma, the expanded project called Doom, Hooray for the Riff Raff, Days of the New, the second album gets a reissue on vinyl. Some jazz from Stan Getz and Bill Evans together is a reissue. Reissues from Thelonious Monk, Art Pepper, Astrid Gilberto, and some more sort of rock type reissues from Prince, the Waterboys, and Van Halen. The Record Store Day live that came out last year on red vinyl is being reissued on black vinyl. I don't know why they're putting that out instead of making more of the recent Sammy box set, but that was the choice at Warner Brothers apparently. So hopefully that gets rectified soon. March 1st, so moving to the next week, The Who live at Shea Stadium, 1982, I believe. Liam Gallagher with John Squire from Stone Roses, their new album together. Yard Act, that's been highly talked about in on the indie circuit. New albums from Ministry, Zach Zach Sabbath, Zach Wild doing Black Sabbath songs. UFO has a reissue. I think Lights Out, and Bruce Dickinson's new solo record. Also albums that day from Mannequin Pussy and Sheer Mag. Sheer Mag has they both have, I think, Philly connections. Faye Webster, Everything from England, Kaiser Chiefs, and Kula Shaker. So all sort of bands of Brit pop sort of era and post that. Walter Trout, if you're into blues. Sean Lennon's new album. 3 albums from the original jazz classics that day. We're still March 1st. Cannonball Adderley and Bill Evans together. Ron Carter and Art Blakey, all reissues that day. On top of 2 tone poets that day, Booker Ervin and Jackie McLean. And then finally, there's a Violent Femmes deluxe 3 LP edition expanded of their solo, the album self-titled. March 8th, we get Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies deluxe edition. New albums from Norah Jones, Ariana Grande, and Judas Priest. Also, Rolling Stones, Wiltern Theater, that comes out that day. Also March 8th, Bleachers, Taj Mahal, Libertines, yes, reunited, Pixies at the BBC, and Lorena McKennitt. March 15th, the days are getting bigger. Beyonce just announced her album for March 15th. We'll see if it actually gets out physical that day. I don't know. Beyonce has a lot of power, so it probably will. Casey Musgraves just announced her new album for March 15th. The Black Crowes, their first album together in 13 years? That's March 15th. Those are all the 15th. Ides of March. Also, Justin Timberlake is that day. Lenny Kravitz is that day. A lot more of these 90s people. Scott Stapp is that day. Sum 41 is that day. The Dandy Warhols, and reissue from Cake, Pressure Chief, which is the sort of later album from them. Then Jid and 21 Savage. There's a live Fish from the Spectrum in 1997, I believe is coming that day. That's what we've been told. Shelly Manne has a contemporary series in the jazz reissues, and Joe Henderson, a jazz dispensary title that day. March 22nd, all right, Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies reissue. Unfortunately, we're not going to be getting whatever the super deluxe version of that is. We'll just have a good reissue of that. Because indie stores apparently don't matter to Alice in Chains and Sony. No, I really don't know. I don't know why they do that. Also that day, a new album from Elbow, which I heard a track from, was incredible. There's a lot of energy there, so that might be a really good record. Jesus and Mary Chain have a new album that day, their first in a dozen years. Waxahachie, Andre 3000, the Flute album finally gets a physical release. Hopefully it's that day and it doesn't get pushed back again. Adrienne Lenker of Big Thief, her new solo record comes out that day. Gary Clark Jr. has an album. A couple of indie things from Empress of, Julia Holter, and The Return of the Gossip featuring Beth Ditto. And I don't know if we're getting the actual physical that day or if that's just a streaming date. And then just kind of to just mention some stuff coming after that in late March, early April. Sheryl Crow, Vampire Weekend, Khruangbin, Marcus King, Phosphorescent, Maggie Rogers, Girl in Red, The Melvins, Pet Shop Boys, Justice, and then on the 19th, which is the day before Record Store Day, there's a new Taylor Swift album coming out and a new Pearl Jam album coming out. Now, the Pearl Jam is actually releasing a indie exclusive for Record Store Day the next day on March 20th. So you may have to, if you want both, you may have to buy one on Friday and come back on Saturday, or get them both on Saturday. I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know how we're going to do that. And then Taylor Swift, we haven't heard yet, but I'm assuming there's probably going to be some kind of indie exclusive. Whether it comes out on the 19th or Record Store Day is anyone's guess at this point. We still don't know. And also, Neil Young has a new album with Crazy Horse. Its official date is April 26th, but there will also be a Record Store Day version of that coming out on April 20th, Record Store Day. So really, I think right now, if you're a music fan, you better just pencil in April 19th and 20th as the dates that you really need to pay attention to everything coming out, because it's going to be unlike, I think, any Record Store Day or release date that I've seen in a long time. So I may not be sleeping for a couple of days is the way I'm looking at that now. So, all right. Let me finish today by giving a sort of recommends. There are more things coming, but that was, again, highlights. I've mentioned these guys before. They have an album coming out April 26th. And I think the single comes out physically next week on CD, of all things. And there might be a vinyl too. There was for stuff from their last record, but I really love this is synth pop duo from the 80s. One of my favorites, Pet Shop Boys, and this album cover, I just love it because it kind of describes their commentary on the world around them. It certainly doesn't describe the music, I don't think, but Neil Tennant, the lead singer here, looking quite tired. Chris Lowe, multi-instrumentalist and keyboardist, doing sort of the I'm glum and bored sort of look here. I love how their early albums, they would sort of have these completely white covers and they'd be sort of somewhere in the center, and it really sort of drew your eye to it. The other thing I have to give them credit for is their new album that's coming out is called Nonetheless, and it's their 15th record together. They've been together for almost 40 years now, and out of all 15 of those albums, they are all one-word title albums. So talk about consistency. The debut was Please. This one's actually followed by Introspective, Very. I think of some of the others. Oh, Fundamental was one. Yes. Elysium, Electric. Every album is just sort of a one-word title. Nightlife. Anyway, so this was their sophomore record, and it came out originally in 1987, I believe. Of course, the date isn't on the back here. I believe it's 80, 86 or late 86 into 87. Sometime, I think it was 87. But anyway, the thing with this was that, a lot of bands have trouble when they get to their sophomore record. And it's like they either gave us all their best ideas on the first one, or they don't really know where to go after that. And these guys really knew what they wanted to do, and they'd had so much success with the first album. West End Girls was a number one hit on both sides of the Atlantic, and that was kind of rare for British groups at that time. I mean, yes, we'd sort of had the second British invasion of sorts of the early 80s, but for bands to hit number one was kind of tough for them. And I think because of the sort of hip hop nature of the song, it kind of spoke to like a younger American generation too. And it was a good song. They had at least two or three other hits from that album. So when they started coming up with what they were going to do here, they decided to kind of work with some of the same people and then find some different producers and different collaborators. Well, the one in particular I would mention, which was kind of a ballad, was the song "It Couldn't Happen Here." You can't see the song titles because they're so in all this white. But the beginning of side two, which is a ballad, and to start side two off with a ballad was sort of risky too. But it used string arrangements from Angelo Badalamenti, who passed away last year. 2 years last year. He was the guy who wrote all the music for Twin Peaks with David Lynch. So very kind of a beautiful string laden song. But this album, it starts with a song called One More Chance, which was a very early song that they wrote. I think they wrote it in New York. I'm not sure, but Bobby Orlando, they might have worked on that with. It has a very sort of like 80s kind of New York club sort of sound to it. But that was followed by What Have I Done to Deserve This? And that song was actually a number two hit in the US, and it did quite well both sides of the Atlantic. It featured a duet from Dusty Springfield, who hadn't had a song on the charts in at least a decade, maybe longer, and she just they gave her a chance and kind of said like, we would love to have you on our record, and it turned out to be sort of a great duet. Neil with his sort of deadpan kind of talking, and her with her sort of like beautiful uplifting chorus. um, Neil was a sort of a music journalist when he kind of got into the music business, and he and Chris met at a shop where they were looking at sort of keyboard gear, and so it was kind of interesting that they sort of kind of became the people that Neil was sort of writing about at first. But anyway, so What Have I Done to Deserve This was a really big hit. The other really big hit on this album was "It's a Sin," which that was the first single from this in the U.S. It hit the top 10, and it's a big sort of like kind of grand Catholic sort of like, if you see the video, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's a very sort of like lot of sort of self-loathing sort of like factors into the lyrics and the visuals, but the music is just so powerful. It's got a very strong sort of chord progression that kind of draws you in, and the arrangement is just epic and overblown sort of, but it's supposed to be. Then there's the song on side A. I'm sort of skipping around, but it goes One More Chance, What Have I Done to Deserve This? Shopping is the third song, which is kind of a toss-off type song. Tossed off. Better watch I say that. With the SHOPPING. We're shopping. I mean, it's sort of like a very kind of banal type of chorus, but meant to be. The other song I need to mention here is Rent. And that song was recently used to great effect in the movie Saltburn, which I was just talking about a few weeks ago here. There's a scene where a character gets up to sing that song, and it basically is kind of like telling what his situation is in the movie, and it's kind of not a good place to be in, where you feel like you're only there because other people are paying for you and taking care of you and whatever. But it's kind of again, a mellow ballad. That song was a huge hit in the UK. It didn't really hit the American charts because I think it was a little too, maybe too British for us. But other songs, Hit Music was kind of a dance track. I Want to Wake Up is kind of a moderate sort of dance track, a little more introspective. Heart was a huge hit, #1 in the UK, and I don't know why it wasn't a hit here, except I think the label was a little behind in the US and they wanted to move on because in the UK they just released a big cover song of Always on My Mind, the Elvis song, and that wasn't on the album, so they repackaged and resold the album, putting a 12-inch single of Always on My Mind with it, and that was a top 5 hit in the US also. So they kind of skipped Heart, but I think it could have been a hit here. Heart is a great song, and the video features Ian McKellen as a vampire. So if you ever go, I mean, it's kind of corny, but of the time, you know, the 1980s, you think, oh, it's like Ian McKellen, you know, of Lord of the Rings, Gandalf. And then the last song, King's Cross, is kind of a more meditative song on sort of like being in a sort of impoverished sort of state, and also sort of talking a little bit about well, I think the Brits could probably describe this better, but it's a little bit about violence and things like that as well, in sort of metaphorical terms, I guess. But anyway, I love this album. It's great. I mean, when I first bought it in the 80s, I played the living daylights out of it, and I still go back to it from time to time. And it really holds up as a sort of one of the better things to come out of the 80s. If you're talking like things like Tears for Fears and I don't know, certain like Duran Duran songs and Eurythmics, things like that. Neil doesn't have like the mellifluous voice that say like Andy Bell of Erasure or somebody like that. You know, it's not quite as soaring. It's a little more conversational is the word I would use. It's got a very sort of nasal talking quality. It reminds me a lot of Al Stewart, if you remember him from the 70s, Year of the Cat, Time Passages. I think a lot of people, when this came out, they probably thought, oh, Al Stewart's made a dance record, you know? But yeah, it's kind of like in that vein of sound, but it's quite good. So my recommend for this week is Pet Shop Boys, actually. All right. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. I appreciate it. And like I said, I don't know how many more of these I'm going to do because I feel like, oh, it's just me just talking about my favorite things. And yeah. Anyway, have a great weekend. Enjoy the music. And like, I hope I gave you enough sort of like stuff to look forward to. So you're going to have to start sort of like making some hard choices, I think. But all right. Peace. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. Thanks. Take care.